Oh, wow.
I just hit myself in the face doing that.
Welcome to Oddball. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm Amin Hassan. That's Charlotte Wilder right there. Coming up on the show today, second half of our conversation with Isaiah Thomas, one of Charlotte's favorite former Celtics, comes on the show. He's got stories. He's got insights. You don't want to miss it. Also, it's a segment we like to call...
Hype me up.
Decidedly less hype than usual there, but I'm going to let it slide. But first, Charlotte, one of the stories from earlier this week, we kind of covered a little bit on headlines on Tuesday, but we didn't really get into the nitty-gritty. Giannis Antetokounmpo's interview with Tanya Ganguly of the New York Times, in which he kind of issued an ultimatum for the Milwaukee Bucks, saying, I'm not going to sign an extension if I don't feel like we're all doing what we need to be doing. I'm paraphrasing.
He said he's not going to sign until next year. He said it doesn't make sense for him to sign now. Is that true regardless of whether he feels that Milwaukee is competing for a championship? I guess the machinations of how contracts work, sometimes I'm like, I don't fully understand what's best for the player here. So what's going to be in Giannis's best interest overall?
Okay, so there's two conversations happening. One is his basketball success, legacy building conversation. One is a financial conversation. So let me start with the financial conversation because that's a lot more cut and dry. He's eligible to sign a 3-year extension in about 30 days. He'll hit the mark where he's eligible to sign that extension. The number is north of $170 million over 3 years. It's a lot of money, obviously. And so the question is, if Giannis were to sign this 3-year extension, which would tack on to the end of his deal, versus playing out his contract and signing a new 3-year deal with a different team. What is that financial difference? And the reality is, because the max is based on a percentage of the cap, and the cap keeps rising, we're talking about probably about a $12 to $15 million difference over the total lifespan of the 3 years of signing that extension now versus waiting to the end of his contract and signing a new deal with a new team with smaller raises. It's not that big of a gap in the money. And as a result, for Giannis, it's like, okay, it's more money to stay, but is it enough money to say unequivocally I'm going to stay, particularly for someone who at this point has made a lot of money already? So that's the financial side of it. The basketball side is the interesting part. Because basically what in essence he's saying is, why would I lock in now without any assurances that we're doing everything it takes to be a championship caliber club? This is a guy who obviously had a devastating loss in 2019, being up 2-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals and then losing 4 straight games to the Raptors, who ended up winning. They lost in the first round to the Heat in 2020. 2021, obviously, they won the championship, but they had some close calls along the way. And then 2022, they lose to the Celtics in the second round, albeit injury-laden. And then this last season, 2023, they lose to the Heat in the first round as a number 1 seed. So he's had, even that championship year has been sandwiched with a lot of kind of underachieving. If you're Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have to feel the desperation of, look, are we doing everything to make this team unequivocally a championship favorite, right? Not just a contender, but a favorite. And when you look at that Bucks roster and say, what did you guys do in the offseason? And the answer is, well, we added Robin Lopez and Malik Beasley. Like, that doesn't feel like we're pushing all of our chips to the middle of the table.
So is this a leverage play for Giannis?
Yes and no. Like, it's a leverage play in terms of a very...
In that, like, if you don't sign guys for me, I'm not sticking around.
If you don't continue to invest everything it takes to make this team championship caliber, I'm not sticking around. With regards to Damian Lillard, the idea of, hey, my superstar is upset and wants some help. He'll be fine. He's a pro. He's a nice guy. He's loved in the community. He treats everybody with respect. He wouldn't leave us. He's just a little mad. He's just, shaking the cage a little bit. They make these excuses. But the reality is, These guys are intense competitors. And when you talk about a Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Milwaukee Bucks,
Yeah.
Drew Holiday, Brook Lopez, Chris Middleton, these guys are all good players, right? Their career ends today. They walk around them. You know what people call them, Charlotte?
What?
Champion. That guy's a champ. He won a championship. And they'll never have to buy a drink in Milwaukee, and everyone will love them. But for Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the top 75 players of all time, you know what they say if his career ended today?
What do they say?
You just won one? That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, go sit at the kids' table over there. You want to be mentioned with Magic and Steph and LeBron and Kobe and Shaq and Michael with one ring? Get out of here, bum.
Yeah.
That's his reality. He carries an incredible burden of excellence where winning one isn't enough and winning two isn't enough. And whatever you got, X plus one is always the next goal. And so if everyone around him gets the feeling of, well, Giannis isn't going anywhere, we're going to keep winning 50 games, everyone's going to be happy, and all of us are going to go home after this is all done, patting ourselves on the back, Giannis has to be like, wait a second, like, I don't have that luxury because my career is finite, and it will be defined by how many of these I win. And so you say this to tell the organization unequivocally, don't rest on your laurels or take it for granted that I'll always be here.
Right, because he's doing what Dame didn't do, which was like put his foot down and do it publicly so that they can't keep saying, well, but Dame's loyal, he's nice.
Yep.
Okay. So do you think the Bucks are going to listen? Like, how regularly also are these conversations happening? Like checking in, being like, Giannis, you good? And if not, is this the only way to make that really clear?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have a superstar, you're checking in regularly, whether it's the coach or the general manager or even the owner.
Right.
If you're not hearing from at least one of those people once a week, then there's a big issue there. But in terms of what can they actually do, and this is the interesting part, not a whole lot. The Bucks traded a lot of picks to get Drew Holiday in there, right? So they don't have a lot of picks. They don't have, they're hopelessly over the tax. So they don't have a lot of breathing room in that regard. All they have really available to them is the minimum, which is what they signed Malik Beasley and what they signed Robin Lopez, who's minimum deals. And when you talk about tradable assets, Chris Middleton is older, Drew Holiday is older, Brook Lopez is older. So it's like, those aren't exactly young prospects that get people out of their chairs. It's not, by way of example, Miami, a team that people say, oh, they don't have a lot of great prospects. Milwaukee doesn't have a Tyler Hero that they can say, this guy is going places. So without tradable assets like picks or young players, without salary cap flexibility, there really isn't a lot. And that's what the collective bargaining agreement was designed to do, is like, you want to spend that much money? All right, but like, you better be in love with your team. And so there's a part of this where I'm like, unless the Bucks just don't have any bumps in the road, inevitably, I think this thing is going to go to a place where they're going to have to start seriously considering trading Giannis before his contract is out. Not saying this year or this month or this offseason or whatever, but at some point when it becomes apparent we're not getting better, our guys are getting older around Giannis, and we don't have the wherewithal to add meaningful supporting talent, then the logical thing is to explore trading him and saying, you know what, got to know when to hold him and when to fold him.
Where would you want to see him go? Hello?
601 Biscayne Boulevard, baby. Let's get Dame. Let's get Giannis. Let's get Embiid. Let's get them all down here. It's going to be a ball. That's my answer for all of these. That's what I love. My answer to all these. And I'm not even a Heat fan. I don't give a shit. But I like the idea that, I could just cross the street. I'll see Giannis and Embiid and all the Dame, all these guys all the time. That's right. Our studio's across the street. That's all I care about. Travel time. Oddball.
All right, oddball.
Hey, Charlotte, you know what time it is?
I sure do. I mean, it's time for Hype Me Up.
Look at her grin.
I have to take a really deep breath before I do that.
Yeah. Hype Me Up. This is a game where we read a name, a statement, and a speculative statement. And the other person has to do their best to be the greatest cheerleader for each one of these things. All right, Charlotte, are you ready?
Yes, I usually end up just negging everybody, but we'll see how I do.
LaMelo Ball is your name, Charlotte. LaMelo Ball. Got to hype him up.
Oh, yeah. This one's pretty easy. You are doing so much better after your injury. You had a season-ending injury, and you are back. You're young. You're healthy. You're just going to keep getting better and better. You are one of the best young players in the league. I think you had stats in your first year in Charlotte that only Luka Doncic has matched. So the world is your oyster. You've got Brandon Miller now. You've got all this young talent, and Michael Jordan sold you guys. So maybe you'll do better than you did under him. The world is your oyster. LaMelo, you're a rising star.
Heavy on the oysters, and what a dismount. Did
I say that twice?
You turned into Borat there.
I had something in my throat. Did I say the world is your oyster twice?
You said it several times. Lots of oysters.
Huh.
It's like a McCormick and Schmicks in here.
Tis the season. All right, Amin, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes, I'm ready.
Klay Thompson.
Oh, come on, baby. Klay, you went on Paul George's podcast and you said, hey, man, like I was just in my feelings when I was talking trash to Devin Booker and holding up the rings and stuff. I'm a chill dude. Everyone loves you. Everyone loves Klay Thompson. There isn't a person on earth, or an NBA fan, I should say, on earth, who says Klay Thompson's whack or the guy's trash or whatever. Everyone loves him. You got a great, easygoing personality. You are a 4-time champion. Maybe you could win a 5th. Who knows? And you're going to the Hall of Fame. And also, your father is a delightful human being, Michael Thompson. Everyone loves your dad. He's funny. He's insightful. He's got all these sayings. I know you're tired of him. You think he's corny. But, hey, man, we love your dad, too, Klay. We love you, too. Shout out to the entire Thompson family.
His dad's Twitter feed, or X feed, as we are now calling it, is great. Also, you started that real baby Billy, I mean.
I did?
Yeah.
All right. The statement, Charlotte, is the Timberwolves have to wear those newly unveiled NBA City Edition uniforms. We got those on the screen right there. Oh, look at those. So, Charlotte, you have to hype them up because they got to wear these jerseys.
Okay. Look, T-Wolves, a lot of people have been roasting you for the fact that you have to wear these, but I think that while they may not be the most visually beautiful, they do look a lot like the backgrounds of those school pictures you would take in the 90s. And to me, that was the height of art in America. And I think that if you have someone, if you stand behind one of your teammates and they stand in front of, like, kneel down, stand in front of your chest, and someone takes a picture of it, it'll look like the school background. And I think that's way cooler because nobody else in the NBA can do that. So this is these are amazing, and you are going to look so good.
Charlotte sounds like trying to introduce a friend to another friend, like to date. And the one friend isn't attractive at all, but she's trying to hype up, like great personality.
Really sweet,
fun,
lovely guy.
Yeah. Last one for you. Daryl Morey. You got to hype up Daryl Morey when he does the exit interview for James Harden. So you're hyping up Daryl.
I'm hyping Daryl.
Yep.
Oh, this is great. Okay. Daryl. If anyone has proven to be able to go head-to-head with James Harden's stubbornness, it is you. We talked about this earlier on a different episode of Oddball. That, Daryl, I am sure you watched. You are engaged in a game of chicken, and a lot of people might be scared or nervous when that other person comes in and sits down. Also, I guess if you're doing an interview, this maybe means you lost and you swerved first, but let's just pretend it didn't. And you were made of iron. You were made of steel. Nothing can God, this is going off the rails.
Yeah. You're made of iron, you're made of steel.
You've known this guy for a long time. You know where his weak spots are. If you're still trying to fight each other or whatever it is that you're doing, I'm sure you can find a way to just really make yourself feel better and make him feel worse. Daryl, I think you're going to win this interview. I'm thinking of it as a very combative situation, not as like a professional workplace environment, because I feel like that's not what you've got going in Philly. So, Daryl, you're going to come out on top.
Okay. Okay.
I don't even know what I just said.
That's one way to hype
out.
someone up. Okay.
Okay, here's your last one. You have to hype up James Harden when Daryl Morey does the exit interview.
The old switcheroo. I see what you guys are doing there. Okay, here we go. Woo-hoo-hoo! We are out of here. Peace out. Hey, suck it, Daryl. You can have the franchise in the city. Have as many cheesesteaks as you want, buddy. Oh, by the way, can't wait to see Joel Embiid get traded in like 18 months down to Miami. Ha, 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 ha. I'm going to LA. 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 That's what you should say, James. Pay no attention that I'm not wearing the same clothes I was wearing during Hype Me Up, or I'm not standing in the same spot. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you, coming up next, part 2 of our conversation with Isaiah Thomas. Me, Charlotte, Isaiah Thomas, we had a ball. Take a listen. Isaiah, you talk about that, getting traded, obviously what you went through with your injury, what you went through with the passing of your sister, and that's incredibly difficult times. But I'm wondering, outside of that year in Boston and then Cleveland after that, outside of any physical stuff that you had, what was the most frustrating time in your career as a player where you felt like, man, I'm just not getting the respect or the opportunity that I deserve?
I mean, I think my first 4 years in the league, like my first 4, obviously my first few years, I got to prove that, I belonged in the league. So I understand like fighting for my opportunity. But at the end of my rookie year, the last 30 games of my rookie year, I was starting. So I started my last 30 games of my rookie year. I showcased that I can start and play at a high level. Going into my second year, the Sacramento Kings brought another guard in, Aaron Brooks, which was a mentor of mine, somebody that grew up in my backyard and I looked up to. And I had beat out for the starting job my second year. Going into my third year, they traded for Grievous Vasquez, which was a bigger guard. And it was every year, it was just always something. Like it was like, oh, we need a bigger guard to win. We need this. Beat him out. They end up trading him. I started that year, averaged 20 points a game, 6 assists. I ended up going to the Phoenix Suns that summer, not knowing that, I would be in the backcourt of Eric Bledsoe and Dragic. I end up, to the outside looking in, I kind of end up outplaying those two guys that season. And I wasn't really getting my just due, but I fell into the role of being a, 6th, 7th man and doing what was best for the team. Then I get traded to Boston, where Boston needed me and I needed them. They gave me the opportunity.
We did.
You already know. They gave me the opportunity to showcase who I was and who I'm capable of being. And I took that opportunity and ran with it. And I think at that point in time, the world knew, and not sound humble, but the world knew how good I was with every opportunity I got. Once I got that opportunity for playing for, one of the most legendary franchises and doing the same type of things I've done, my previous 4 years, the world started to take notice. The world started to see, okay, he's not playing no games. With given an opportunity, he's one of the best guards in the world. Then, I think it was my 5th or 6th year where, I was able to be an all-star. Then my next year, able to be all NBA and be in the MVP conversation. I think at that point, I solidified myself to the world of being, you could say, a top 10 player in the world. I was second team all NBA. And if I didn't get hurt, it was only going to go up from there. Like I already figured the game out individually. My team was a number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, so we were a top seeded team. It wasn't like I was getting numbers on a losing squad. The next year, we got Gordon Hayward. We drafted Jason Tatum. Like it was all coming together. I promise you, we would probably won the finals the next year. Like that's how good things were, and that's how great my game was going in terms of figuring the game out. I was going to be MVP the next year, I promise you. Like, I already figured the game out, already wrote down my goals. Like, everything was going to happen because it was supposed to happen like that. But I think during those years of Boston, the world figured out that I wasn't playing no games, and I was able to impact the organization in more ways than just scoring. Things happen, and you just move on, and you continue to, believe in God and believe that everything happens for a reason. And I always look back and cherish those moments of being in those spaces. being on top. You know, it was super dope because I always dreamed of those moments and I always worked for those moments. So when those moments came, it was like, you know, I would just smile, put a smile on my face because I already seen those moments happen in my head. And they just happened to happen in front of the whole world. And it was just super dope to see it lay out like it did, for sure.
Isaiah, before we let you go, I do have one question. I've heard stories about the explanation behind this, but I want to hear it from you, the actual reason why your name is Isaiah Thomas. I'll tell you what I heard. The rumor I heard was that your dad was a huge Laker fan, and he lost a bet when the Pistons beat the Lakers, and as a result of losing that bet, he had to name you Isaiah Thomas after the great Isaiah Thomas. I don't know if that's just a legend that people made up or if that's the real story. So please, once and for all, give us the real story, how you ended up with your name.
So look, that's what I'm told as well. So my parents have told me that, but there's two sides to it. My name is spelled different because my mom grew up in church, so she wanted it spelled the biblical way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two sides to the story. My dad is born and raised, my dad's side of the family born and raised in Inglewood, California. I'm a brainwashed Laker fan, so growing up I was brainwashed into be a Laker fan. Kobe's my favorite player ever. So that was one side to it. And then the other side to where it always has to get out or somebody's going to get in trouble is my mom wanted it spelled the biblical way. So that's the only reason why my name is spelled different. My family calls me Zeke, like the older Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas is one of my mentors to this day. So it's super dope to be able to be named after one of the greatest basketball players ever. But it is frustrating at times. Like until I got my name, you know, until I hit the scene of being a household name, it's funny. Like I go to airports, you know, a car is waiting for me or something. They have a sign of Isaiah Thomas. It'll be an older gentleman. He's like looking like where like the one time he's like, I'm like, oh, that's me. And he's like, no, I'm waiting for Isaiah Thomas. I'm like, oh, that is me. I'm going back and forth with him because he's thinking it's the older Isaiah Thomas. And I'm like, nah, I know who you're talking about, but my name is Isaiah Thomas. And I'm sorry that it made your energy go down because he was meeting somebody that you probably watched when you were a little younger. So I get those things every now and then. But now since, you know, I was able to hit the top of the top in the NBA, I don't get those things no more. Like I think they think of me first, especially the younger generation.
Right.
They think of me first now, so that's really cool.
His name is Isaiah Thomas. Spell it right with the Isaiah Thomas. Thank you for joining us on Oddball.
I appreciate you guys. It's all love. Thank you for the love and support.